And, those first couple of weeks, I was really like nervous and anxious about everything because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just showing up to work and giving it my all. But yeah, the guy called me. He's like, yeah, today's your last day.
Damn.
You're still a junior in your level, and we're just looking for someone with more experience, which I can understand, But at the time, man, it was such a blow. I was like, man, I got rejected from Foster, and I just got laid off from my first job. What am I gonna do?
That's a hard hit for anybody.
Yeah, I was really questioning if I was meant to work in the business world as a professional.
Hey guys, welcome to the Untapped Potential Podcast. Today we have Fabio Peña. Fabio owns Peña Co, which is a management consultancy that operates First Hub, a mentorship network for first-generation college students and professionals. Welcome to the show, Fabio.
Welcome, Fabio.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, how you doing? How was the drive? You drove from Tri-Cities, right?
Yeah, I drove a few hours, but I feel like I've gotten used to it commuting in Seattle when I lived here, so it was pretty nice. Brought back a lot of memories.
Yeah. And so you actually grew up on the east side of Washington, but in Yakima, right?
Yeah, I was born in Mexico, but I was raised in Yakima, Washington. Basically grew up there my entire life, and then I came to school here in Seattle at UW.
Gotcha. Let's start at the beginning. You were born in Mexico. That's interesting. What part of Mexico were you born?
Villa Corona, Jalisco. And so I was born there, but I moved when I was 2 years old, and so I didn't really have much of an upbringing there. But I do have like the scar on my shoulder, so I kind of have that a little.
Vacuna.
Yeah,
that's cool, man. I can relate. Actually, I came at 2 years old too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you grew up in Yakima right away?
Yeah. So we grew up on the east side. My family, we had a house like in Moxie, and that's basically because that's where like my dad's job was. So and then we moved over to Terrace Heights, and mainly east side of Yakima.
Oh, that's cool. What was that like? What was it like growing up out there on the east side of Yakima?
It was cool. At the time, I mean, everything just felt like normal. I thought that's just how life was. It wasn't until like I started going to school and, was being a part of all these things, getting involved with the community, that I started recognizing that everybody's privilege is different. Everybody else had different upbringings. And, that's when I started discovering myself more, especially when I took off to college.
Gotcha. Did you have any like moments while you were growing up in Yakima that kind of like stood out to you where you realized, that you had different advantages with being first gen?
Yeah. So I think, let's say, maybe it was like in high school, I was part of like this Christian youth group brand. I played the guitar, and that was fun and all. But I remember this guy, him and his family were building like a mansion. They were building this big old property, and they basically offered me my first job. It was just like one day, and I was literally just like scooping rocks and cleaning up their property. And they told me they'd give me like $100 at the end of the day, and I was like, I'll do it. Let's do it. But that's when I realized, like, man, I'm covered in dirt. I'm doing all this hard labor, and they were just doing their own thing. They were doing their own business, and that's kind of when I saw from a perspective that I was like, I don't want to be the one doing this kind of work in the future. I like to have my own property, and that's when I just saw things from that perspective. I was like, okay, I don't want to be doing hard labor all my life. I wanted to get a college degree and work with my mind. My older brother always told me, when I worked at Finish Line, he's like, do you want to be the one selling shoes or do you want to be designing shoes? And that always put things into perspective for me.
That's a solid.
That's an interesting.
You said older brother?
Yeah. So my older brother, Omar, he went to Wazoo, I believe, with you, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah. So from Yakima, you went to UW then, University of Washington, to go to school. What prompted you to go to the big city coming from a small town?
I would have to say
movies.
I knew, I watched the Step Up series. I think it was Step Up 3. They had like the movie New York City, and I was like, I want that. I want to meet some other dancers in the city and live that life. And I just used that as an excuse, but really I wanted to go to UW just because I went there for like a dance camp, and which was just part of the motivation. But I just loved the city, the campus, and the people. I just felt like I knew I belonged there. I felt comfortable with myself there. I had a lot of friends that wanted me to go with them like to Wazoo and all that, especially because my older brother went. My parents even tried pushing me to go there, but I don't know. I guess just growing up, I wanted to do things just a little differently, and I don't know why, but UW was calling my name, and that's why I ended up deciding to go there.
And so when you went to school, what was like your main focus or objective for your education, and did that change at all down the line?
I mean, there were a lot of times where I questioned if I wanted to continue doing that, but when I was like in high school, I was involved with a lot of clubs and summer programs, and there was this one program called Washington Business Week. I got college credit from it. It was like a leadership camp.
Oh, okay.
And it gave me the experience of being like the CEO of my company, which was pretty cool because it was like the first legit leadership experience that I was able to get. And I knew I wanted to do something with that, like at the UW campus. If there were like any organizations that had that offered that, I knew I wanted to be part of that. But when I got to the UW, everything was just different, more than I expected. Obviously, I had the culture shock. There's like tens of thousands of students, and I was like, whoa, this is a little bit different than I thought. I'm used to something else. And it was in my sophomore year when I applied to like the business major, I didn't get in.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I didn't get into my business major. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do now? What am I going to tell everybody back home, my friends, and my family? So it was like then and there, really a pivotal moment in my life where I had to really consider things and decide on what I wanted to do. Cause I knew that from then on, whatever I chose, I had to go like 150% because there was just there's no other way,
Yeah, you gotta almost make up for that fact and prove them wrong.
Yeah.
So did you continued in business though, obviously, right? Like you eventually made it into the school?
No. So that's
shoot. Okay.
Yeah, it's a funny story. So when I had applied, I was already involved with organizations, some clubs, the Alpha Club. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
You were part of that, Max, right?
Yeah.
And what is that club?
The Association of Latino Professionals from.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So I knew that obviously in business, there was a power that came behind networking, right? Mm-hmm. And so I still wanted to use that to my advantage because I consider myself an easygoing guy, and I felt like I could still make connections, with the relationships I could build. And, to my surprise, I was still able to get an accounting internship. I didn't necessarily get into the business major, but I knew if I had that summer internship, I knew I still had a shot at making it within my career. And that's what I ended up doing. I had an internship for, it was like a maritime company, like with tugboats.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was a very interesting industry, but that's where the start of my career took off. I started working like in finance and accounting, doing simple internship responsibilities, but I ended up working there part-time basically until the end of my college career, maybe like February, just like a few months away from graduation. But that's really the experience that I needed to take off with my career.
You felt like that internship kind of set like the tone for what you thought you wanted to do moving forward?
Yes and no. I definitely got a lot of good experience about, with working with other professionals.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted something else. I wanted something different. The good thing is that I knew I was getting the experience I needed to at least put on my resume and start put myself out there on the job market. It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
I applied to a lot of different jobs, and there was this one recruiter from a recruiting agency in Seattle that they contacted me, and they asked me if I was interested in working for like a temporary assignment for like this SaaS company. They did like services for like government agencies, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I actually ended up getting laid off after my second week.
Damn, man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like the second Friday I went home, and I was like, hell yeah, like this is like payday, I went home to my girlfriend, I guess my wife now, but my girlfriend at the time, and I told her it was pretty good. I mean, those first couple of weeks I was really like nervous and anxious about everything because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just showing up to work and giving it my all. But yeah, the guy called me. He's like, yeah, today's your last day.
Damn.
You're still a junior in your level, and we're just looking for someone with more experience, which I can understand, but at the time, man, it was such a blow. I was like, man, I got rejected from Foster, and I just got laid off from my first job. What am I going to do?
That's a hard hit for anybody.
Yeah.
I was really questioning if I was meant to work in the business world as a professional. I thought that I was just doing the kid stuff, being involved like in camps and all that. But I kept applying to jobs. I had nothing else to lose. And I don't know if it was me being stubborn or me just being optimistic. I knew that at least one job had to buy. Like if I even got like another temporary assignment, I would know now, to take better notes or ask more questions. And I actually was contacted by another startup, a health tech startup, and they wanted to give me a job full time. And I went through this like long interview process. I even interviewed with the CEO. And when I was told I was going to interview with him, I was like, no, this is it. Like, I don't think he's going to find value in what I could bring to the table. But, they took a chance with me, and I ended up working there for a couple of years. And
oh, wow.
It was really like the best thing that could have happened to me because I got a lot of experience working with the professionals there. It was a health tech startup backed by the founder and CEO of Zillow, Rich Barton.
Oh, I
Oh,
see.
wow.
And so a lot of the leadership team, they were, connections with them. They worked in Microsoft and Amazon back in the day. And I was working directly like under them. I provide like financial reporting, a lot of forecasts, like anything finance related. I was working under their wing. And that's where I got a lot of my, experience, a lot of the experience that I feel like is very valuable to this day that I could, bring to other companies. So it's very pivotal moment in my life.
Yeah.
Like, what was the difference in terms of culture? Did the other job not feel like you were too young to get like as many opportunities, or were they just kind of closing you out from like certain, I guess, developmental opportunities?
Yeah, so I would just have to say that company culture was just like the biggest difference. It's still tech related, but in the first company, I felt like it just was everything relied heavily on data and analytics, and so
see.
the types of people that are passionate in that field differ from the other company that I worked with. And so the other company I worked for was called Real Self, and literally the company culture was about that. Showing up to your work as your real self. And so when I applied to that job, when it asked about like me, the things that I like to do, I was fully transparent. Like my name is Fabio. I like to, hang out with my family and friends, like enjoying the outdoors, and I like dancing and doing all of these sorts of things. And I guess they liked that. They liked me just being transparent, because I feel like they were the type of the company that believed that having employees with, fun personalities or just did things more than just work would be an asset to their company. So
That's awesome.
That touches on a good point too, how, as first gen, we don't really like, coming out of college, we kind of are good getting any job.
Right.
Or like a company's offering me a job, it has a big name, it's going to pay me a pretty good salary. I'm going to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of because we don't really have like anything to compare it to. We don't have like, a lot of the time, speaking for myself, we don't have a mentor to say, you should look for a company with a good culture that's going to invest in you, that has the resources to invest in you.
Mm-hmm.
What's some advice that you have for first gen college students that are about to graduate on what to look for in a good company?
I guess there's a lot of things, but I think the main piece of advice would be to just go for it. Because there are a lot of times where I even questioned if I should apply to a job, because I already started doubting myself. Like, no, they're not going to get back at me. I applied to countless jobs, but, you only need one to get that job, obviously, right? You're only going to work at one job. And I think eventually one company will give you a chance, as long as you're just showing up as your true self and really putting out the value that you can add to their company. Obviously, which takes practice. You definitely want to practice interviewing and everything. But, my advice would be to just go for it, because I feel like you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great advice. And so how did Peña Co come to be?
Yeah, so it's kind of a short but long story. After I worked at that startup, I worked for different companies for like 4 or 5 years, and it wasn't until COVID hit that really shifted my perspective on a lot of things. I was laid off from this law firm that I worked for in December, and a few months later in March is when they announced like the shutdown. And so that made...
Oh, wow. So you were still unemployed during that time.
Yeah, so that made
wow.
finding a job a lot harder. I mean, every job was like closed or postponed. And I was literally just sitting at home, with my dogs, watching movies and seeing what I could do, trying to apply to other jobs. But I just knew that things were going to be different, because, every day, every week, something was going on with COVID. More things were shutting down. I remember when like Disneyland shut down, and I was like, oh, wow, that's never happened before,
Yeah.
And then they had like the quarantine, and everybody was freaking out, and everybody was buying toilet paper. And I was like, what the heck's going on, But it was at that time I was like, man, like this sucks. Like, I don't want to be in this situation again. And so I started considering grad school, and that's when I was applying to different MBA programs, and I got accepted into the Seattle U program. It still took some time, because I wasn't going to start school in the fall, and I still had that entire year. But I knew that I didn't want to be in that position again. And so I figured that with the experience I had, and, by the time that I graduate with my MBA, I'd want to find my own clients. And that's when the idea of a consulting company started. And, that's when I started Peña Co. And the reason I called it that was because, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there are a few other management consulting companies. There's called Bain & Co. and McKinsey & Co. to be honest, it sounded really white. And so I kind of wanted to add my own twist to it, Peña, like that sounds Mexican,
Yeah.
It's never been done before. And so I wanted to do that. And I knew it was going to be a hard start, but I just decided to go with it. By the end of the year, I had created my logo and the branding, and then I started the social media pages. And ever since then, obviously it took a lot of different turns, but the main idea was to be able to find my own clients in case I ever find myself fired or laid off or in between jobs, and I can make my own clientele.
That's cool. And where would you say you acquired the skill set to start the company? Did you have to research it? Is this something that you gained experience in previous roles?
Yeah, it was a combination of experience from everything from high school, college, the clubs that I was involved with, the work experience. I knew I wanted to start off with a big bang with my branding. And so I was trying to build up that hype, you could say. I wanted to, really come out with a bang, saying that I'm going to start out fresh and strong, like during the first of the year. And that I wanted to build a lot of the branding and the brand awareness through social media. I did dedicate like a few of my posts to like strictly consulting stuff, and of course I had some of the supporters I had like from people that I went to college with, but it wasn't until like a few posts I was like, man, I'm not really enjoying this. I almost find it boring, about putting this stuff on social media. Cause when you go on an Instagram, you don't really want to, you kind of want to escape reality. You just want to see like some funny reels or something cool. And that's when I was like, you know what, I'm just going to talk about my experiences. I don't really care, because I got to a point where I had been rejected and denied by so many opportunities. I was like, I'm just going to tell it like it is. And that's where the idea of, sharing stories unfiltered and transparent came from, because I just wanted to be honest. I didn't care at that point.
That's cool.
And I was talking about it with my wife, and, we're just bouncing off experiences, like, cause we both went to UW, and we ended up calling that little storytelling series called First Gen Cuentos. Which eventually became pretty big. We share the stories of other first gens like around the country. And that's when I started taking the page in that direction. My wife and I really had the idea behind it. And so that's why I consider like each other co-founders of the page, because without, that, I don't think it would have become that.
That's cool. Yeah, no, that's actually how I found your page too. Is like, I think I saw one of your videos where you were talking about your experience being a first generation college student, going into the workforce and stuff, and that's how I followed your page. I think at the time you probably only had maybe like a few hundred followers, and then I saw like at one point you like blew up. Was there like a specific reel or a specific TikTok that went viral?
Yeah, I did have one reel that went viral, and it was like a silly challenge where you just talked about like the meaning of your name.
Interesting.
And I Googled my name, and it ended up being, the meaning ended up being bean farmer. And I was
bean
like, what?
Farmer?
Yeah. And so like my initial reaction was like the actual reaction. I was like, no, this is embarrassing. But I just posted it because obviously you want to be consistent and put something. If it does well, then fine. If not, then whatever.
Let's go on to the next one.
So
like
Peña
means bean farmer.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Know, but,
Google said.
Yeah, that's according to Google. But a couple
funny.
weeks later, my phone was blowing up. I had never gotten that so many notifications, and the reel ended up getting 2.4 million views.
Wow.
No kidding.
Yeah.
On Instagram?
No
On
way.
Instagram, yeah. And so
Wait, let's pull it up real quick.
Introduce yourself as the meaning of your name.
I see why that was viral. Man, that's funny.
yeah, and so I got a lot of comments and messages, and my phone was getting like literally thousands of notifications every minute. Like I could refresh the page, and I would get like 100 new followers. And I was like, I can see why people get addicted to social media, because like that little ego boost, that little
Like,
you just
wow,
want to keep on
famous.
doing more, And I got 1,000 followers like that week.
Damn.
And it
That's
just
cool.
up, and I got another 1,000 followers like the next couple days, and I was like, this is like no way this is growing this crazy. But at the time, it was kind of like the best thing that could have happened on my page, but also the worst, because
really?
Instagram was still building their Reels feature ever since like TikTok started, and that was getting more hype. They were kind of like fighting over the platform, right? And so the insights to my Instagram were really affected. And like what I mean by that is, like the peak times for like your posting, and then like the audience was really messed up, because the video, it ended up coming in waves. So I ended up getting like a lot of likes and followers from like Russia like one day, and then India, and then Europe,
Ah,
and all these time zone differences were really messing up. And it ended up being like my best posting hour was like at midnight or like
Oh, interesting.
at 6 p.m. or something. And I was like, well, what do I do? And because I wasn't following those rules, it wasn't getting much reach anymore. And so even though I got like 2,000 followers, like the next couple months, I ended up losing them.
Oh,
Because people just didn't find value in the page anymore. They're like, well, I didn't follow this page for first gen content. I wanted
Right.
more humor, you know?
ah,
And so
yeah.
it was really tricky because I felt like I was stuck in a pickle. But with, the numbers, people still saw the page growing, and they're like, okay, wow, they're getting started. They got a couple thousand followers,
Right.
they got some cool stories I'm going to follow. And so I felt like I still had to start from scratch. But thanks to
Gotcha.
that reel, I ended up getting like the image from the outside,
Right. There was like a few sticky followers that stuck, even though, your content wasn't always like just comedic.
Yeah.
But it was people who you ultimately wanted to reach in the end, right? First gen students and
Yeah.
professionals. That's cool, man. And so like, what's your next goal with Peña Co? What's to come?
I'm still thinking about that, but in the next year, I definitely have I want to have more of a physical presence. And
Yeah.
so, we definitely want to host more events like here in the state. And I'd like to do some events like out of state, because I've been able to grow those connections out of state. And, a lot of first gens around the country, they've been really cool and supportive of the page. And I definitely want to take it in that direction. We have the scholarship open right now, but I definitely want to open up more services that just provide value to first gens. Our mission is to be the most trusted destination for first gen students and professionals. And I really want to stick to that. And so we'll see how things go. I have some ideas on the wraps, but it takes time.
It's cool.
I want to pivot real quick to just going back to the social media post, because it kind of triggered something in my head. With a lot of attention going to one page, obviously, I guess you're the featured person on this page, right? There is a portion of that audience that will support you, and obviously a portion that won't, and that obviously the toxicity of the internet comes out. We've started to see that on our pages because we had
yeah.
a clip blow up too. Tell me how you've been able to navigate through that, and like, what is your mindset around that? Because obviously, as you continue to grow the page, there's only going to be more of those people coming in to chime in their opinion.
Yeah, the internet's a funny thing. There's a lot of funny people out there, a lot of weird people, but I've definitely had a lot of trolls. And I think the first few started coming from reels that was sharing about, fighting toxic masculinity, because the page is about being a first gen, being a first generation student or professional or whatever. Part of that comes with breaking generational cycles, and then I wanted to focus a reel on toxic masculinity, within the Mexican culture, fighting machismo, right? And I think it was like the first few that ended up, they were trending. And with that, I got a lot of trolls that were, sending me messages, private messages. They were commenting a lot of nasty things. And I was like, whoa, like, I can't believe they said that. They don't even know me. And they're already assuming these things. And
And that's the same toxic masculinity that you're referring to, right?
yeah. And so it was a lot of low blows towards me personally, and even like almost towards my family. And I was like, I was very shocked, but I wanted to keep like a professional image, obviously. And, I was looking up things on the internet with other like YouTube influencers on how to deal with these trolls, right?
Yeah.
And they give you like a few different options. Like one of them is you can reply back, obviously fight back, but that's not going to get you anywhere. You can just ignore it, or you could just like block them and, have that stuff off of your page. And I think for me, really the biggest thing that I found was that, with trolls, they comment on your stuff, all these negative things, not because they want to have a conversation, but they just want to hurt you. And that's their main goal. Their goal is to just get under your skin, and they won't even like do anything after that. And for me, I got to a point where if it's really something that's just harmful, it's very toxic, or I'm just going to end up, blocking that content off of the page, because really I want the platform to be a safe space. I have it on my bio that it's a community, and I really want to keep it like that. I don't want to have all these hate comments. If there are some comments that are, controversial or up for debate, you can tell by the people things post, the things people post. But if it's something that's straight up like a threat or something, no, it's gotta go.
Right.
And on the same token too, you have people sending you messages, I'm assuming, of like, wow, like your content really inspired me or affected me. Like, what are some of those messages that you've gotten that have really stuck out to you?
Yeah, I think one of the most recent ones was like they had sent a long message, like a real personal story of their life, and I was just like, wow, like this reel actually touched them. At the time I was like, well, I'm just creating a reel on Instagram, did it really provide this much value to you? But you never know what somebody's going through, and at the end of their message they had a little note saying like, whether it's just the Instagram algorithm or whether it was God talking to me at that moment, I thank you for this message. And I was like, wow, like that's pretty awesome.
That's deep. Yeah.
I do share some of the comments and messages that people put like on my stories, to show like, hey, like this is the stuff that really matters to me. I don't really care about like the likes and the followers, but the value and the engagement that it has, because I feel like that at the end of the day, that's what people are going to walk away with,
Right. The impact.
Yeah, the impact. And so some of them were just like really intimate and personal. I was like, whoa, like they really trusted me with this, and I'd have conversations with them. And I feel like those followers still, continue to support the page to this day. And for that, I'm very grateful. I think that's the best part about having that platform. I got to the point where people are thinking like, can you be my therapist, or I want to work for you? I was like, what? I'm not a therapist, like I'm just sharing my views and my perspectives, but thank you. I really appreciate that.
Some people get really personal. They feel like they know you personally. It's like, what do they call it? The parasocial like relationship, where you like they have a relationship with the person who's creating the content, but the person creating the content doesn't have a relationship with the viewer. So it's like a one-sided thing.
Yeah, it is a one-sided thing. It's funny that you mentioned that, because my mom follows these YouTube influencers. They're from like Mexico. I don't know if it's because they do a lot of traveling, or they're shared like a day in the life of, and every time she brings it up, she'll tell me or my younger brother, she's like, mira, son mis amigas, like they're my friends. And I'm like, they don't even know you. Like
they're all vlogging and stuff. Yeah. They feel like they're a part of it.
But my mom must feel like she's getting some type of value from the content that they share. And I think like, is that how people like perceive our page? Like it always makes you wonder, who knows, maybe like people don't really care. They just continue swiping on, but it's funny to think of it like that.
Has she ever, I'm sure she's had like shown you off like, hey, like my son does all this on the internet?
No, not really, because I don't no, and it's not because she's like not supportive or anything, but because I just never really showed off the page to her. Maybe there were some reels that I showed her, like look at this funny video I created, and she laughed, but I don't think she's aware of like the following that I have, or the things that I actually post on. There have been some times where like, what's your company about, and I tell her like, oh, we're a consulting company and we also provide services for like first gens, and she's like, oh, that's awesome, but I don't think she goes around telling her like, look, this is my son or anything,
Yeah. How could just to pivot real quick, how could people reach out to you for consulting, or for to be a part of the First Hub mentorship, or for the scholarship too?
Yeah, so all three are separate. For consulting, they can go to our website, and I have a contact form there. They can sign up for like a free consultation. I just ask people for their name and the name of their company. And there's also like a text box for like a message. Usually it includes the services that they're hoping to get, or something that they're hoping to see if I can provide them with, and from there I'll arrange the consulting, the consultation, and from then on we'll decide if we want to form an actual client engagement. It just depends, because every company's needs are different, right?
Yeah.
But it usually starts from there, or word of mouth. In terms of like First Hub, like the services for the first gen community, a lot of that is really advertised on social media. Thankfully, people, like and share the posts. The schools will share it like on their bulletin boards or on their social media pages.
Oh, wow.
And so that's where it built a lot of momentum. With First Hub specifically, a lot of schools were sharing that with their students. And it ended up getting like, it was building so much momentum so fast that, like one university, say like, Cal State LA shared it, then you'll see like a UC school end up sharing that. And then like all these Cal State schools and UC schools were sharing it. And then surrounding schools were sharing it, like University of Nevada, University of Texas. And then just started expanding like worldwide, like New Jersey, like New York and Florida. And I was like, holy crap, like people are like
Wow.
It's growing
that's
quickly, you know?
cool.
And
So how many people do you have in the program right now?
so right now, I lost track right now, but the last time I checked, we're in at least about 200 colleges and universities.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
And so it definitely
So
grew really
much.
quickly. And it's been a journey, and I definitely want to focus a lot of my time and efforts into that this next year.
Mhm.
And I do have a lot of ideas, but it obviously comes down to implementing them and actually taking action. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
So being a part of that program, what does that look like for somebody who wants to find a mentor? Like, are there monthly engagements? Like, what is that?
No, yeah. So
process?
people ask, like, what's the time commitment? How much does it cost? And really, as my wife and I, who operate it, as first gens, we know that a lot of students are still trying to figure it out in college, and so we don't want to add to that list of responsibilities. The time commitment really depends on the mentor and mentee and their relationship, whatever works for them. It doesn't have to be every week or every month, whatever. Even if it's just them contacting each other for questions or advice, they have that option, because really it's about providing that connection. And the thing that differs us from other mentorship programs is, a lot of colleges and schools, they have mentorship programs already. But the issue with that is that it's kind of limited to that student body. Say you're in a club and there's only like 10 students available. You only have those 10 students as like an option. And really the goal behind it was to create individualized support for first gens. And so if somebody's trying to get into law school, but nobody like in that state that they know of is doing that, then we'll provide that connection, be like, oh, well, we know somebody from California or Washington or, whatever state. And a lot of the times they have similar upbringings. They were raised as children of immigrants. They come from Mexican households. Some of them, are DACA recipients. Some of them are their oldest child in the family. And so it's those little things that, that they can relate on that is going to build that relationship. And so I feel like that's where the value comes in that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So it's grown pretty quickly then. And you've also introduced a scholarship aspect too.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. And so the scholarship aspect, that's something that really originated with my wife, because I know she had mentioned it early on in our relationship that she wanted to eventually create an equitable scholarship for students,
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully we have like the business and the platform, and so that's why we ended up deciding to pursue that with a company, and we ended up calling it La Luz Scholarship, which translates to the light. So obviously in our mission and our objectives, we emphasize that our goal is to pave the path to success by shining light and all that. And the cool part about it is that La Luz is actually the name of my wife's rancho in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
And so
that's awesome.
it's a little bit of a home touch there, and I think it's really taken off. The goal was to provide a scholarship for everyone and not have anybody left out, because we understand not everybody has the best grades. We don't really start on a fair playing field, because a lot of students, they have parents that have different levels of education. Some of them were born in Mexico and they have an education up to like 6th grade, and some of them were raised here in the States and they actually went to high school here, and all those things like really contribute to a first gen's to their path, because they'll have someone that they go to. And so really the goal behind it was to create a scholarship that was designed for first gens that are, systematically marginalized or excluded. And, it's open to anybody regardless of immigration status. And so obviously we have like friends and family that are undocumented, and, obviously it's a lot harder to find those types of opportunities out there. So we wanted it to be available for them as well.
Awesome. So is it, how many recipients are you awarding that to?
So it just depends on how much we raise as a community, and that's been the fun part, because we've been able to form business partnerships. We have the Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign, which is very similar to GoFundMe, but I think there was just like less fees involved, so I ended up going with that one. We have a lot of individual contributors, and we're also selling some merch. So I'm actually wearing like a First Hub hoodie right now myself, and we just finished taking pre-orders, but all of that is going to the scholarship. And right now we're close to $2,000 that we've been able to raise as a community. And I was pretty surprised by that, because at first I was starting to worry if people were really going to want to contribute to that.
Right.
But to my surprise, a lot of people want to give back, and we're very thankful and appreciative of their support.
For sure. We also have a partnership too, where,
Yep.
by the way, if you buy anything on drip.co, use code Peña, and 10% of those sales will go into the Loose Scholarship. So drip.co, this is a hoodie that we're wearing, a beanie, but yeah, we're also helping support Peña Co and their mission as well. So with the scholarship recipient, those will be awarded when?
The scholarship recipient will be awarded on the 1st of January, which is the 1-year anniversary of our company that was founded. And we'll be accepting scholarship applications until December 24th or 23rd, admin, I can't remember. But we still got a few more weeks, and, we'll still be sharing and reminding folks of that.
So by the time this airs, make sure to go over to Peña Co. We'll show the Instagram right here. And if you're interested in learning more about Peña Co. and his mission, feel free to check out Peña.consulting on Instagram. He'll have all the links to his businesses, as well as La Luz Scholarship in his bio as well. So make sure to check that out. I want to thank you, Fabio, for coming through to the show today.
Yeah, thanks, Fabio.
Yeah.
Thank you guys as well.
Thank you for making this huge trip. I know it was a trip to get over from Tri-Cities over to the Seattle area. So we appreciate you coming in here. Thank you for watching this episode. Make sure to like, subscribe, and catch us every Wednesday.